Meghan and Harry seething to see this. Kate is set for a terrible inheritance from King Charles. Hello everyone. Welcome back to the King YouTube channel. The Prince and Princess of Wales could end up in the very middle of a very complex situation thanks to Charles. But are the Sussexes seething at the sight of this fortune? But to start this video off, we're going to talk about your opinions and perspectives on the issue that we have talked about in our community tab. What can I say? That's a true class coming from Catherine, Princess of Wales. Meanwhile, looking at Meghan, surely no designer wants her to wear their clothes anymore. It's all a disaster. So let's see what you had to say. First up from Teresa, Catherine, no matter what she wears, she is always stunning and you can't beat class. The other wears clothes like she bought them from a top shop. Isn't it interesting how Catherine does not have to go around wearing the most expensive clothing? She just looks gorgeous no matter what because she knows how to dress herself. Meghan, she's a lost cause. And then we've got Julianne. Princess Catherine is impeccable and is all class. No comparison to try-hard Meghan Markle. Joybird says Meghan's outfit was the worst. I could not believe she wore such an outfit. And then Valerie, what a contrast. Princess Catherine has modesty, decorum, style, kindness, and it all shines through. The other one is a mess. Valerie, I love the point that you're making here. I think that is one reason why Catherine always looks better. It's because what is on the inside is so much better than what Meghan has to offer. Catherine is a lovely person, and that shows on the outside too. And then we've got CBH. Princess Catherine looks stunning in everything she wears, doesn't she though? That woman could wear a potato sack and still look gorgeous. User ET2, it's like comparing the Ritz Hotel in London to a homeless shelter in LA. Ooh, touche on that one. Hills 3066, there is just no comparison. It's like a glass of fine wine versus a can of Coke. Honestly, I only disagree with this because I don't think that's fair to a can of Coke. More like a cup of raw sewage. This comment from Kate London made me chuckle too. What's really scary is Meghan Markle has this smile on her face like she's incredibly proud of her UPS Gumby pants that she slept in last night. No wonder Dior said pass. Yeah, Dior was not going to get involved with her. I mean, come on. And then Violet, Catherine is pure class, isn't she though? JP, I know what we can get Meghan for Christmas, an iron. Wouldn't that be funny if a bunch of people all sent Meghan an iron? Do you think she'd get the hint? Probably still not. Susan says, stylish versus disheveled, as always, truly. And then Mona, Princess Catherine is absolutely beautiful. Well, that's something we can all agree on. Tony says, geez, no wonder Banana Republic came out and said, please don't wear our clothes. If Meghan Markle is the model for how they'll look on you, then who would ever buy them? Seriously though, what company would want Meghan Markle wearing their clothes at this point? And to think that she believes she's going to make a lot of money on Instagram by shilling for corporations. She's dreaming. Next we got Nanita, Princess Kate, epitome of elegance, class, and beauty. And then Mari Jones, that picture says it all, class versus crass. Meghan never ceases to amaze me by her wardrobe choices. Does she not have anyone who will tell her the truth? A stylist? Wardrobe specialist? Sad. It is sad, but it's happening to her, so it's not really all that sad. And then Vicky Carey, I realize that clothing made of linen wrinkles easily, and whoever is wearing it realizes it too. I can't understand the logic behind overlooking that you look completely wrinkled all over. That doesn't look nice at all. Vicky, I think when we're discussing Meghan Markle's behavior, we just gotta forget about logic. I mean, Meghan doesn't believe that any rules apply to her, so I guess the rules of logic fall into that same category of rules she's not gonna follow. I also laughed when I read Margin's comment, Princess Catherine is all class, the other one chooses bad outfits with dreadful material that will crease her crush. She constantly reminds me of an unmade bed. You are so right. How much do you want to bet that woman never makes her bed at home? I cannot picture her as being the type of person who can't leave the house until her bed is made. I'm sure she doesn't care if it's a rumpled mess because then at least it'll match her clothing. And then we've got Moody Blue. It's so funny to me that after the complaint about always having to wear neutrals, now all she does is try to imitate Princess Catherine or Princess Diana. Right? I guess now, over 3 years down the road, she has decided maybe neutrals weren't so bad after all. And then a few comments down, Cafe Con Leche Girl says, I think she purposely wears wrinkled clothes at this point. LMAO. It must be intentional at this point. I agree with you. There's no way this is accidental. And then we've got, it looks like a sugar. Femme Paredes, Meghan's clothes at Dusseldorf are inexpensive, which is more practical than that of Kate's. She gets taxpayer fund for clothes, privileged Kate for marrying William. I'm so glad I can rely on all of you, though, to stand up for the truth, because we've got Sam Da Silva, Catherine does not get taxpayers' money for her clothing, and Wendy Linton, well, don't you hear some rubbish on here? Haha, Meghan Markle doesn't cost much in clothes. What a load of tripe. Thank goodness we have Catherine, Princess of Wales. Now that lady is the perfect example of how to wear and rewear clothes, and doesn't cost an arm and a leg. Meghan, take some advice from people who know how to dress. And then Sue Harvey, she certainly doesn't look as if she spends much on clothes. Very true, but we already know she spends an outrageous amount of money on that ill-fitting clothing that looks so cheap. Probably because the person wearing it looks so cheap. Many people were also talking about the fact that Meghan was wearing linen, and so of course her clothes were going to be more wrinkled. Teasdale says, obviously with her many wardrobe changes, she either had no time or was too lazy to iron her clothes. Then why bother bringing so many linen outfits when something in wrinkle-proof fabrics would be a better choice? For a frequent flyer, she's totally clueless. It is weird, isn't it? I mean, did she not know that linen wrinkles easily? Has the woman never worn linen before? I'm pretty sure that she has. Does she even know the first thing about fabrics? Probably not. Now, don't get me wrong, linen is beautiful. I absolutely love wearing linen. But you do have to be a bit careful about when exactly you wear linen, and you also have to make sure that you iron it very well beforehand, and you need to make sure you have time to do that. It's like what Chloe Hall says a little bit underneath that. Meghan Markle seems to be wearing a lot of linen clothing. Linen is fine if you'll be standing or walking, but if you'll be spending any time sitting, you will look like a wrinkly mess. Meghan Markle should know that. Meghan likes to portray herself as this fashionista, so I would think that she should know that. I understand Meghan never officially worked in fashion, but still, it's pretty much common sense. Alright guys, time to move on from the comments and let's get to the big topic today. If you spend much time at all reading and thinking about the strange, crazy, and occasionally amazing beast that is the British monarchy, there is one thing that becomes clear. There is always one winner who can lie in bed eating their pie and wondering if the cellars have any more of that good wine. And then there are the rest of them. They've got titles, but they are stuck on the losing side of ruling and seniority and wealth. And the best example of this would be found in a monarch's will, not only a document sealed by the courts and kept under lock and key, but also, thanks to bespoke tax laws, means they always leave most of their money to their direct heir. And this means that when it's time for King Charles to finally meet his maker, it's going to be his son Prince William, the Prince of Wales, who's probably going to get all of his $1.1 billion fortune. But this is hardly the only legacy that His Majesty may leave to his son and his daughter-in-law Catherine, the Princess of Wales. How about that horrible PR debacle of historic proportions? Something that would make the whole Sussex fiasco seem like just an annoying little blip. On the one hand, William and Catherine may turn out to be big winners, but on the other hand, the king might end up lumping them with having to figure out a legal, moral, political, and financial situation that is of unprecedented proportions. And it all goes back to how precisely a sovereign ended up with $1 billion in personal wealth, really more than $1 billion. And it doesn't even include the $1.25 billion Duchy of Lancaster estate that His Majesty earns income from. Back in the 1660s, Charles II issued a charter for what became the Royal African Company, and the Royal African Company did transport slaves. Now today, Charles III is worth 9 figures, and he is the head of state of a country whose prime minister earlier this year refused to officially apologize for slavery. And this week, Dr. Mohammed Irfan Ali, president of the South American country of Guyana, went on Breakfast TV to renew the calls for Britain to make reparations for slavery. He told the hosts of Good Morning Britain, "You are one of the beneficiaries of that slave trade, so this is not a burden. You should be concerned and you should pay because you today still benefit from the greatest indignity to the human being, and that is the slave trade." Talking about the royal family's connection to the slave trade, President Ali said, "If you go to many of the palaces in Britain, you'll see the lovely hard work from Guyana. You will see the sweat, tears, and blood of the slaves who were exploited and the revenue that was earned from the exploitation. So we're not asking for a palace, we're asking for justice." And in a scheduling mess-up that must have had Kensington Palace incredibly nervous, right as William was taking New York with his big, bold $95 million Earthshot prize, President Ali was only 4 blocks away at a Midtown hotel for a Clinton Global Initiative meeting. And this call for reparations is following even louder calls from places like Barbados and Grenada, Jamaica, and other countries too in recent months. At this point, it seems basically impossible to believe that this is not going to come to a head. Maybe it's even going to end up in some courtroom. It looks like Britain, and especially the royal family's colonial past, is about to catch up with them in a very big way. Now, here is a little recap if you didn't major in history. For most of 500 years, there was a transatlantic trade in human beings. More than 11 million people were kidnapped from Africa and they were taken to the American continent. Now, around half of those enslaved people were forcibly taken to Brazil, and it went on all the way up to the late 1860s. And it wasn't just Britain, let's be real. France and Portugal and the Netherlands were also very active in the trade. And by the 17th century, Britain had become the dominant force under the Royal African Company, with the Duke of York, later on James II, serving as the RAC's governor. Between 1673 and 1688, the Royal African Country transported an estimated 90,000 to 100,000 enslaved human beings, many of whom got these brands on their chests, DY or RAC. By the early 1800s, though, people started to realize slavery was problematic. The cause of abolition grew in the UK, and they formally abolished slavery. Now, that's legislation that didn't include India and Sri Lanka. The government at the time borrowed £20 million, a really ridiculous sum of money, actually, to compensate slave owners for their loss of property. So big was this amount that it took until 2015 for that original £20 million debt to be paid off fully. But the problem is, none of that money went to the actual human beings who were enslaved. It is important to remember that Britain was not the only European power to make a lot of money from this morally disgusting business. I mean, France is included, Portugal, and the Netherlands too. But at the same time, we can't really just let the House of Windsor off the hook. Just think about this. William and Catherine's London home is still Kensington Palace, and it was built by William III, whose money, at least partially, came from shares he was given in the RAC before he took over as the company's governor himself. And many people are upset because they think in all of this there is one important fact that Charles seems to be avoiding. He is the head of state. I mean, the job of king means showing some real moral leadership, and so far people are saying that he hasn't been doing a good job in this area. Considering how complicated everything is here, I'm wondering whether this is something that can or will be resolved in any way, shape, or form in his lifetime. So it looks like this very complicated issue could end up being the responsibility of William and Catherine. Quite an inheritance for the prince and princess, huh? Now, the Waleses also don't have the best track record on confronting and addressing Britain's colonial past. How could we forget what happened last year, when Kensington Palace chose to cancel their first official engagement during their tour of the Caribbean instead of dealing with protests by the community in the Maya Mountains of Belize? Instead of actually just going and listening to what the people had to say, the palace decided to move William and Catherine's show onto another location where they could just do something lovely for the cameras. And of course, people had a problem with it. It didn't look good. And so, for the rest of the tour, William and Catherine stuck to a program that many people said was a bit outdated. Immediately after the tour, when they came back home to Britain, they were faced with the first real catastrophe of their royal careers. In April of 2022, the Mirror reported that William had held crisis meetings on how to modernize the monarchy, and also that he and Catherine had, quote, vowed to rip up the royal rulebook. But as far as I know, nothing really has come from those meetings. And some people are upset because they see William going out of his way to do what he believes is right on another issue. He has publicly called for almost 2,000 items made of ivory in the royal collection to be removed from public view. Now, I understand this is a very complex issue indeed, and I understand the British government wouldn't really like it if the king and his family waded into this all on their own. But the longer that it looks like the royal family isn't doing anything to address this issue, the more it is going to hurt their reputation around the world, whether that's right or wrong. And trust me, I can understand why they just want to look forward to the future. I can understand why they don't want to discuss the monarchy's part in Britain's colonial history, but at some point they're going to have to deal with it. And this could be a very long process indeed. So William and Catherine may end up with a history as watching responsibility of trying to reconcile the monarchy's historical role in slavery and the modern world we live in today. So sure, one day William and Catherine are going to be a lot wealthier thanks to the king, but at the same time, they may end up having to find some way to make peace with a pretty dark past. And you, do you agree with this view? Let us know your opinion below in the comments. If you preferred our video tonight, don't be afraid to like and share with your friends and relatives who would love it anytime you want. Please don't forget to subscribe to our The King YouTube channel to get more updates in the future. Thank you so much for tuning in. Have a lovely evening, and we'll be back to see you tomorrow. Bye. I love you all.